Myth. At first, there existed only vast primordial chaos. Slowly, order began to assert itself, and twin giants were born. Initially, they were without fixed form. At times, they were as diffuse and amorphous as smoke, while at others, they could condense themselves into a mass that was as hard as steel. To ensure that the world maintained its balance, the brothers divided it between themselves. But in time, the younger twin became dissatisfied with this arrangement. Fueled by greed, he made his body expand until it began to encroach on his elder brother's territory. The elder brother, believing in the power of reason, decided that he would punish his wayward sibling. He said that he would leave him the entire world as his domain. But then he asked, "Is this grossly swollen body of yours not a burden? Will it not hamper you as you travel about your territory?" Upon hearing these words, the younger brother immediately shrank himself in size. This had been the elder brother's plan all along, and he pounced on the small frame of his sibling. He enveloped his brother, determined to prevent him from expanding in size again. He rolled the younger brother into a small ball, locking him in this new form. Unable to move, the younger brother became the earth. The elder brother, weighing down oppressively on his younger sibling, became the sky, and so the earth and sky were created. With his younger sibling unable to interfere, the elder brother dominated the entire world. The elder brother abhorred chaos and greed, so he gave the world a form that obeyed order and reason. The sun rose and fell, and so time was created. Snow, rain, and storms were each given their place, and so the seasons were born. The younger brother, now the earth, could only look on with jealousy as all this took place. His silent greed grew enormous within him. At the center of the earth there was a sea of molten, swirling greed. This greed was pushed to the surface, manifesting itself as lumps that disfigured the land. These lumps became the first humans. It is said that there were two tribes of humans. The first tribe was ashamed that they had been born from greed, while the second accepted their nature and embraced this greed as their destiny and birthright. The first tribe was known as the Romulus. They despised greed and looked to the elder giant of the sky for guidance. They came to worship the heavens above them. The other tribe was known as the Druids. They gave in to their greed and sought guidance from the younger brother who slept beneath the soil. They came to worship the earth. At present, it is the elder of the twins who has claimed victory in this epic battle, but there is no guarantee this victory is everlasting. If the powers that binds the greed of the younger brother were to grow weaker, then the world would become a very different place. History. Once upon a time, this land was inhabited solely by a tribe known as the Druids. They had the power to manipulate the world around them, bending it to their will. Everything in the land was under their control: trees, earth, and water, sheeps, cows, and goats. A modern observer would consider it nothing short of miraculous. Little did the Druids know, however, that their period of domination was soon to end. Their downfall was triggered by the aggressive influx of a new tribe known as the Romulus. Though the Druids were a gentle folk, no tribe can remain peaceful when its existence is under threat. Making use of their curious powers, they tried to halt the invasion of the Romulus. The conflict that followed would become known as the Olympian War. The mysterious powers possessed by the Druids caused the Romulus to tremble with fear. Humans, after all, fear what they cannot understand, and most react to this fear in the same way. They try to force their own interpretations onto the things they do not understand, in the hopes that their fear will subside. The Romulus leaders branded the Druids as heretics who made a pact with the devil. The thought of this heresy soon changed the ordinary Romulus's fear into hatred, inciting further hostility towards the Druids. The special powers used by the Druids during this conflict would become the first recorded use of sorcery in history, but they say that the Druids' magical power came at a price and took a great toll on their bodies, which would start to decay as if cursed. As the conflict with the Romulus dragged on, the Druids' use of sorcery led to huge casualties to both sides. Consequently, this sorcery also encouraged the Romulus to improve their armory. By honing their metalworking, the Romulus could produce armor and shields capable of withstanding the Druid sorcery. With these factors on their side, the Romulus eventually secured victory. The land, however, had been ravaged by the conflict. The use of sorcery had mutated much of the land and its creatures. Some of them even began to prey on humans. The plains of Olympia, the war's main battlefield, suffered deeper and longer lasting scars from the conflict. The land itself is now dominated by the descendants of the victorious Romulus. The remnants of the Druid have mostly been assimilated into Romulus society. Yet even after years of intermarriage, some still retain the special powers of their Druid ancestors, forming a mystical clique of sorcerers. On Sorcerers. Where there is light, there are shadows. The same may also be said for human civilization. What a terrible shadow would be cast if there existed a race whose sole purpose was to murder. Once a small minority suffered discrimination for wielding the power known as sorcery. As practitioners of arcane rites, which included sacrifice and offerings, the sorcerers were reviled by those around them. In time, despite their value, sorcerers were shunned by society, impelled to the fringes. Just as shadows are necessary for there to be light, oh, the irony when their persecutors tried to draw on that very power. Even a child would have scoffed at their egotism. However, the sorcerers accepted the charge. They did so as to provide opportunity to unleash their power without fear of persecution or personal or public reprisal. Had the task been a simple matter of ridding the world of foul monsters, it would not have fallen to the sorcerers. But although the targets of the purge were monsters in name, they had in fact once been human. They were changed for one reason: their overgrown sense of abyssal desire. However it might be justified, the sorcerer's assignment amounted to nothing more than murder. Who else would devote themselves so committedly to the task of ending the lives of others? The sorcerers set about this ill-fated duty in a land ruled by reason. Only places of bloody suffering would provide the opportunity they sought to put their powers to use. No restraint was needed against enemies who had forsaken their own humanity. Indeed, only those who dwell in the shadows can bring such dark acts to light, and so it is that sorcerers continue to serve openly as agents of murder. Romulus and Druids. The reach of the Romulus Empire stretched clear across the continent. Its people were comprised of two types: the dominant Romulus tribe and the small minority of Druids. They were unequal in more than just number. Romulus' oppression of the Druids was as thorough as it was relentless, and behind that brutality motivating it was fear. Fear of the curious power wielded by the Druids. The minority practiced rites and traditions dark and foreign to the eyes of others, and through these rituals the ability they came to possess was known as sorcery. Though the Romulus people shunned and persecuted the Druids for their heretical ways, they knew the minority was vital to their own survival. For ever since the Olympian War, monsters had begun appearing in ever-rising numbers, their marauding a plague upon the Empire. Especially troubling was the fact that each was once a human being. To hunt monsters was to murder, to eradicate them, genocide. While their cruelty to the Druids had raised little objection, ethical qualms over slaying monsters stayed their hand. The Druids, for their part, struggled to retain their ancient practices despite their assimilation into the Empire. Their disparate needs brought about an accord between the two tribes. The Druids served as hunters for their Romulus lords. In turn, the Romulus guaranteed the livelihood and preservation of the Druid tribe. And so, the Druids made murder their trade and stepped forever into darkness. But don't mistake them. They are not wicked men, for theirs is a necessary evil. On monsters. After indulging in the powers of sorcery, a living thing overcome with desire will assume a perverse form. Such is the origin of monsters. These foul creatures come in two distinct types: humans who succumb to terrible longing transformation into archfiends. Other living things indirectly exposed to sorcery mutate into fiends. Regardless of type, it is said the desire held by each creature plays an important role during its metamorphosis. Combined, these monsters have unleashed rancor and ruin on humankind. As a matter of course, society looked for a way to expunge this plague. Archfiends, however, present a significant problem. To dispose of creatures that were once human would be murder in both name and deed, though the task must fall to someone, lest the spread of devastation be met unchecked. And so the foul task fell to the sorcerers. Secret Sect Avalon. This is the Sorcerers Guild. It was founded to undertake requests to kill monsters known as Avalon Pacts. The guild dispatches its sorcerers far and wide to slay monsters that were once human. Essentially, it is an officially recognized body that deals in murder. The guild is made up of descendants of surviving druids. Ironically, it is mainly those of Romulus who once nearly wiped out the druids who pay them custom. Amongst the sorcerers, there are a number of different responses to this rather unusual situation. There are those who simply see it as their job. There are others who only pretend to comply with the wishes of their clients. There are also those sorcerers who join the guild so that they can kill with impunity. All those who work for the guild obey what is known as the Sorcerer's Code. All monsters must be slain. It is believed that those who give in to greed and desire are bound to repeat their mistakes. The severity of the punishment is to match the sin of the beast. For these reasons, it is not permitted for sorcerers to save monsters. But it should not be forgotten that sorcerers are human too. Tormented by their duty on occasion, they offer salvation to the beast that they have been sent to kill. The guild tends to turn a blind eye to this, but should a sorcerer persistently violate the code, the guild is known to hire contractors. In such case, they say that the sorcerer in violation will pay with their life. Doppelganger. A sorcerer that has become a beast is known as a doppelganger. This transformation arises for a number of reasons, most commonly an occurrence after wounding by a beast. The desire within the monster seeps into the wound, spreading through the sorcerer's body like a poison, corrupting them. In this case, the sorcerer will assume the form of the monster that wounded them. But there is another possibility. In the act of sacrifice, a sorcerer might fall victim to their own ambition. If the soul absorbed proves too strong, then the victim's soul overwhelms the sorcerer, sparking a ghastly metamorphosis in the host. This soul burns with a desire to return to its prior form, and so monsters appear identical to those that have already existed. All doppelgangers were originally sorcerers, but whatever their origins, they are now monsters. The Sorcerer's Code is absolutely clear. No monster should be spared, not even former friends. Gemini. Sorcerers that have become monsters are known as doppelgangers. This transformation can occur when the sorcerer has sacrificed a victim that proved too powerful. In these cases, the soul of the victim seizes control of the sorcerer, turning them into a monster. Each time a sorcerer performs a sacrifice, the soul of the victim is absorbed into the sorcerer's right arm. The work of a sorcerer necessitates a number of souls dwelling within their arm at any one time, and on rare occasions something can go very wrong. Two or more souls can run amok and turn the sorcerer into a doppelganger. The sorcerer's body can end up torn asunder, becoming multiple monsters. Where more than one soul forms a doppelganger, it is known as a Gemini. Price of sacrifice. The vanquishing of monsters is not the sorcerer's sole province. It is also expected of them to sacrifice and seal the filthy souls within their own bodies. In merely killing, the greedy thoughts of the victim would become as sprites and go on to be born anew as foul beasts. The jack-o'-lantern is an apt example of this phenomenon. A sorcerer loyal to the code will take his sacrifice's soul into their right arm. In rare cases, a soul taken in by a sorcerer will overcome them. A sorcerer should possess a strong sense of purpose so that they may keep other souls under their control. That is to say, a sorcerer must win their battles within and without. The sorcerer's life. If someone's soul comes to dwell within your right arm as a result of sacrifice, you become party to their knowledge, experiences, and emotions. Of all the emotions that can be drawn from, it is another's hatred that grants the greatest advantage when battling monsters. The extracted power that comes from sacrifice is essential for disposing of more malicious monsters, and is one of the main reasons sorcerers are compelled to perform sacrifices. Of course, if sorcerers fail to handle such a negative force, there is a danger that they will turn into a monster. To hold back the darkness, one must become darker still. Such is the life of a sorcerer. This is but one such end from which there is no escape. So what happens to these sorcerers tainted by the darkness? To those who remain loyal to their mission? Well, the numerous souls sealed within their bodies eventually burst their vessel and gnaw away at the unfortunate sorcerer. Having engaged in the slaughter of foul beasts long enough, they become monster themselves, only to be purged by another sorcerer. This is how sorcerers who lead their lives in necessary evil hand over from one generation to the next. Some still say there is a value in the cycle, that they manage to stop the spread of darkness through the sacrifice they make of their own bodies. Others say the cycle itself is a necessity for the sorcerers themselves. After all, if all foul creatures were to be wiped out, what purpose would that leave for the slayers? For them, becoming a foul beast ensures the survival of the clan, though the individual may be damned. If asked why sorcerers exist, the average citizen of the world would be lost for words. So colossally absurd is the answer. Sorcerer's right arm. The sorcerer's right arm is cursed. That is to say, the souls of the sacrifice corrode like a curse. One's own flesh becomes a vessel in which greedy souls are housed and reduced to raw power. This is the sorcerer's purpose and way of life. Their existence brings order to the world. Sorcerers turning into monsters is simply fate and should not be given a second thought. They are as rags to be thrown out, their purpose fulfilled. Perhaps they were too true to their ideals. If one follows the code, an untainted arm is the greatest shame there is. It's only natural to yearn for the light, for a place warmed by the beams of the sun. But such a life is not for all people. For light to exist, there must also be dark, and dark duties to be done. Dress black to be white, and the seams will only split apart. Show me a sorcerer proud of their purity, and I will show you a failure, the justice of the dark or the heresy of the light. These are the sorcerer's two choices. About the Chalice. A legend that grants the desires of those who obtain it. How one goes about obtaining it is something of a mystery. The Chalice is said to be involved in most cases of men turning to monsters. It is said when a desire is granted, a vital part of one's humanity is lost. One theory posits the Chalice is alive and actually chooses its targets. Some say it's the mythical god of the Druids himself taking a chalice's form. There is no proof either way.